After almost half a century, two of the most sought-after pieces of cryptozoology media have finally been found. These are the Marvin sea serpent footage and the lost TV show Fabulous Animals. Here are the stories of how these were found after all these years. For a bit of background on Marvin, in 1962, an underwater oil company captured a strange animal on video. It was a long corkscrew-like creature that moved in and out of their camera range over the course of several hours. The crew nicknamed it Marvin, as it meant friend of the sea. Several biologists looked at the footage, but they weren't able to agree on what it was. Some thought it was a siphonophore, some a salt chain, some a ctenophore, and one person even thought it was an unknown ancient animal. Decades later, the only surviving part of the footage was a few frames from it. I talked about it in my video on Cryptid Lost Media, and a couple of people thought they remembered seeing it on various old programs. Unfortunately, I either didn't have access to these programs or couldn't find them. In April of 2025, the Spanish-language cryptid channel Dino Cryptidos released a video on the lost Marvin footage. This turned out to be a huge part in helping the show be found. As a commenter stated, "A couple of days ago, I saw a video that talked about the creature in question. In the comments, one user mentioned that he remembered seeing some of the footage on a TV show when he was younger, although he wasn't entirely sure if it was the same footage or the exact date. So I set about searching through archived recordings of that show, and after several hours, finally came across the clip in question. This excerpt is from an episode of the Chilean program El Mundo de Professor Rosa, which addresses various mysteries of the world. Specifically, a segment is dedicated to presenting evidence of sea monsters. This episode, along with others, is archived on the Canal Rosa 13 Reloaded channel. It does seem like, since the video cuts, there was more raw footage of Marvin taken. But I'm hopeful the release of the video helps scientists agree on what species Marvin is. Since the Marvin footage was originally taken, a lot of strange animals have been discovered in the ocean. Perhaps one of them is the species seen in the Marvin video. Either way, this story is why I love cryptozoology and lost media. All it took was one person being in the right place, at the right time, for the footage to finally be uncovered. Hours of people searching for the footage, which I wasn't even sure still existed, finally paid off. The second piece of lost media that was found is the 1975 TV show Fabulous Animals. The show was narrated by the legendary David Attenborough and dealt with both strange recognized animals and cryptids. Now, the history of the show is a strange one. It was aired back in the 1970s initially, and a lot of people enjoyed it. But after the initial showing, the British Broadcasting Channel never re-aired the show or put it on streaming. There were rumors that some people had private copies, but it wasn't widely released again. The only reappearance of the show was a small part being used in a commercial. In June of 2024, paleontologist Darren N made a tweet showing that he was able to access Fabulous Animals. N had actually worked with the company that owned it before, so I was hopeful that he would find a way to get it released. I even tweeted, "Anonymous leak on the Internet Archive win?" Months later in November, a YouTube channel named SkinnyV the Basement Archivist began uploading the videos. Here's the caption included with episode 1. "Here's something I never thought I'd be able to share or even watch. The Lost Cryptozoology documentary series Fabulous Animals from 1975, narrated by a young David Attenborough. I was caught completely by surprise last month when an anonymous person reached out, thanking me for my preservation efforts, and sent a mysterious password-protected file sharing link. It took some time to download all the different parts and finally see what was inside. To my amazement, the files contained several shows I had been searching for and couldn't find anywhere. Initially, I was worried it was some kind of prank when I saw a folder labeled Fabulous Animals, but no, it was genuine. It held all the episodes of the Lost series from 1975. The files were quite low-res and pixelated, so I spent significant time restoring them using different approaches. I'm pleased with how the final results turned out compared to the original source files. I hope you enjoy this unexpected treasure. I, of course, watched the whole series, and it was pretty good. Each episode had an interesting theme. Episode 1 dealt with some of the Ice Age cryptids, like reports of surviving mammoths in Siberia and ground sloths in South America. The second episode dealt with sea monsters like the Kraken, Gloucester sea serpent, and even giant eels. Episode 3 dealt with historical tales of dragons. Attenborough speculates that some dragon reports may have come from extinct giant lizards similar to the Komodo dragon. The fourth episode dealt with some winged cryptids. One was the Vorampatra, a species that some French sailors heard about on Madagascar in the 1600s. It was said to be like a large ostrich, and it laid massive eggs. Madagascar did have a species of flightless bird called elephant birds that are thought to have gone extinct around 1000 AD. Some think they survived longer and are the Vorampatra. Episode 5 dealt with some strange horned creatures, especially unicorns. He talks about one famous alleged unicorn that ended up being a narwhal horn that had washed up on shore. He also briefly mentions unicorns being reported in North and South America. My friend Bamias posted some details about one of these sightings from 1812. It was collected by fur trader Robert Semple in modern-day Caracas, Venezuela. He was talking with a man who told him that, during a hunting party, a strange goat-like animal had been shot. In the middle of its head was a singular large horn. Semple was told this story multiple times, and each time the man described it without any exaggeration or anything that would make him doubt it. Anyways, the final episode deals with 8-man cryptids. Of course, Attenborough talked about Bigfoot. He discusses some of the classic old sightings, like the Ape Canyon attack and the Albert Osterman Bigfoot abduction. But one of the most interesting things he talked about was the Patterson-Gimlin film. He played an interview where Patterson discusses his sighting.
And we had started to come around a bend. Was riding this little horse here, his name's Peanuts. And he shied and jumped backwards and reared up. And as he did, I tried to pull him down, and as I did so, I pulled too hard and we both fell to the ground. I was able to get up, and as I held the horse by the reins and come around him, I then looked over to my left, and I seen this creature. And it was standing by the creek there, about 120 feet away from us. And then it started moving away from us, walked up the bank and turned around, looked at us again, and I was able to get into my saddlebags and get my camera out and start shooting pictures. I yelled at Bob to cover me in case the creature did turn and attack us. At this point, when I was able to start getting pictures, she had walked up the bank and was going on across this sandbar. The creature was massive. I would say that it was 7 to 7.5 feet tall and probably 350 to 500 pounds.
Attenborough theorized that instead of Patterson being a hoaxer, he was actually a victim of a hoax. Someone knew he was in the area and decided to dress up as Bigfoot to prank him. Ray Wallace, who famously made fake Bigfoot tracks in the 1950s, once claimed to have done this. According to Wallace, he felt bad for Patterson, so he dressed up as Bigfoot and told him a location to go to in order to help him out. I highly recommend watching the show. Attenborough does a good job of making cool explanations for ancient and more modern cryptid sightings and legends. There is some outdated information in there, but that's to be expected for something that old. All the episodes will be linked in the description, along with the Marvin program. Thank you very much to everyone who helped find these pieces of lost media. If you'd like to find out about more pieces of cryptid lost media, check out my videos on the topic. Another huge shout out to my Patreons Gerhard, Timothy, Wildworld, Macindude, Jason Cook, and John R. If you'd like to support me on Patreon and give input on future videos, a link will be below. Liking and subscribing would also help a ton. Thank you for watching, keep an eye out for Cryptid Lost Media, and I will see you in the next one.